We've got a great show lined up for you here on Retiring Well. Going to be starting off with the retirement crisis, different causes and solutions. Do we sort of have that sense right now that we're in that crisis where maybe people aren't having as high of an income as they need in retirement? Also, 5 things that kids should know about saving and investing. So if you're a parent or a grandparent, these are an opportunity to learn some more things that you should be sharing with your family. And then what you need to know about asset allocation. It doesn't always just come down to stocks and bonds. There's a whole lot more involved with that. And then lastly, avoid becoming one of these 6 retirement statistics. That's sort of our teaser, so I'll leave you hanging on that, but you want to stay tuned for all that and a whole lot more coming up right here on Retiring Well.
Retiring Well, brought to you by Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial advisors specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan. Retiring Well, helping you plan for a successful and comfortable retirement. Retiring Well. Plan to retire well.
Hey, welcome to this segment on the retirement crisis, causes and solutions. Well, we might as well start with some of the causes of this retirement crisis. It's not going to be a bucket of joy, but we're just going to throw it out there. So what's the first one? Workers are not saving enough for retirement. The second thing is that they're drawing down their nest egg too quickly. Pensions have become increasingly rare. There's problems with Social Security on the horizon as to the ability for Social Security to pay out and keep those incomes the same level. At the end of this decade, there's going to be 73 million people that are ages 65 and older. That's the baby boomers generation. People are living longer. Healthcare costs are rising rapidly. How are we going to pay for all of that stuff that they need? Markets obviously are in turmoil and can have a lot of volatility. They can be awesome, they can be terrible, but that fluctuation creates a lot of fear in people that are retiring. And then finally, I think the biggest crisis of all is that there's like an education gap. What happens is people, they want to have strong opinion, and sometimes people with strong opinion, low information are the most dangerous people. And when I watch retirees come in, they'll be listening to all the different information that they have available, and then they take all this data in and they might latch on to somebody that has a super strong opinion, but actually after you dig deep, they really don't have a lot of information. It might not be somebody that you want to trust. And so just finding somebody to trust, to educate you on your plan and your solutions, and being able to teach you to the point to where you can make a decision. That's when this job as a financial planner, financial advisor is done right, is when you can teach to the point of a decision, educate that far. So let's look at some solutions. Okay, the first one is that currently 40% of workers are not saving enough for retirement. I mean, that's obviously a large amount of workers. And so what the government is doing, and they're trying to pass some legislation, and they're really trying to make this a little bit more automatic on the saving side as people try to address this retirement crisis. So what they're doing through like maybe Secure Act and some different legislation is they're trying to make it easier for employers with 401k plans or 403b plans to auto-enroll their employees. They're also making it available to where they can auto-escalate their savings, like maybe on like a 2% increase each year, just set it and forget it kind of plan. They're also using these target date funds that say, hey, when do you think you're going to retire? This is what plan you're going to go into, and it's a kind of a set it and forget it kind of plan. But all of that is to try to save up these bigger nest eggs, so when people retire, they have some options. Simple IRAs is another smaller employer plan that could be available to help people save more. Okay, the next thing is the biggest fear is like running out of money, spending too much money. Well, the way to conquer that fear and avoid that is to figure out your withdrawal rate. Here's how simple the withdrawal rate can be. You have to do a little bit of homework on what you think your income is going to be in retirement, what you want to spend in retirement, and you take income minus spending, and that's what you're going to be taking from your nest egg. So let's say that you had $40,000 of contractual income, you want to spend $65,000, that means you have a $25,000 need income gap. Take that number, $25,000, divide it by your portfolio, that will be your withdrawal rate. So if you had $25,000 a year, you had a $500,000 portfolio, that would be a withdrawal rate of 5%. Whatever the withdrawal rate is, you should figure that out. That's a number that you want to know. The next thing would be for income and Social Security. You know, the government has different deadlines as to when Social Security is not going to become solvent, and it might be a decade or less away. And so what they're working on are what are the potential solutions for that, because you know, obviously as you get into retirement and you have this dependable contractual lifetime income, you want to know how much you can trust that, and if that were to be either level off or decrease, that's going to impact, you know, your spending and your withdrawal rate and compromise your retirement planning. And so there's a really cool website called the Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, and what they do is they give you the ability to pick some different variables on what would make Social Security solvent, okay, and how it could, and how legislators could change just a couple policies and then make that a much more predictable payout, not only for the current baby boomers but also the future generations. And then finally, just closing that income gap. That's something that we get to specialize in, and you know, we have a lot of tools here at Centennial Wealth where we can take your individualized numbers, we can put it into this program, we can boil it all the way down to one number, and it's the rate of return you would need to have in order to never run out of money. And it's incredible to be able to take all these different variables, boil it down to one little thing, and then say, okay, cool, that's gonna help me make a lot of decisions because I know what I need to do to make a plan that lasts. And if you're ever wondering or worried about something, please give us a call. That's why we're here. We love to educate. Have a great day.
Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well. The success of your retirement depends on a solid financial plan. If you are retired or nearing retirement, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. There is no cost and no obligation, and dinner is on us. We are Centennial Wealth Advisory, financial professionals, specializing in retirement planning and serving all of Northern Michigan, with offices in Traverse City, Gaylord, Petoskey, and Cadillac. Our presentation will address important questions such as how will the new administration impact your retirement? What does the recent Fed interest rate cut mean for your portfolio? Are you worried about outliving your retirement savings? How can you maximize your Social Security benefits? What tax changes are coming in 2025? And much more. Call 888-608-5825 or register online and choose the date and location that works best for you. Wednesday, December 4th at Lakeside Charlie's in Cadillac. Thursday, December 5th at Stafford's Perry Hotel in Petoskey. Monday, December 9th at Boone's Long Lake Inn in Traverse City. Or Tuesday, December 10th at Treetops Hunter's Grill in Gaylord. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. But seating is limited and tends to fill quickly. Call 888-608-5825 or register online to reserve your seats today. Don't miss this important live event to help you plan to retire well.
Now that we're well into the school year and we're busy at our house with math homework, history homework, and English and all of these fun subjects, it's important that we do take time and start to help either our kids or our grandkids think about how can they start investing for their future and starting to educate them on some of these different financial planning topics. When I think back to my school career in high school, I think one of the most valuable classes I had was actually a computer class, and a big focus in that computer class the teacher had us was creating budgets, learning how interest rates work, learning about the stock market, all of these things that ultimately led me to pursue a career in the financial service industry. The problem is that class was an elective. It's not something that was needed for graduation. I was lucky that I had a teacher that introduced us to that early, but it's not something a lot of kids are getting knowledge on. And it's probably one of the more important pieces, and it's something that unfortunately we're going to have to take that on as a burden to either teach our kids or our grandkids going into the future. It's important though that we also think about retirement for them is going to be very different than maybe what you've experienced or certainly what I'm going to experience. The old adage of you go work for a company for 30 years, you retire, you have a pension, you have a Social Security, maybe you have some in savings. That doesn't really work anymore. It's very rare that we ever see pensions with employers. It's probably going to be a different Social Security system when those kids get to that age. Certainly for myself, I'm anticipating certain changes going into the future. So it's important though that we think about their retirement plan and really that it's going to have a lot of stress for them. They're going to be taking on a lot of that burden themselves, and thus we have to then help prepare them to make some of those adjustments if we aren't going to have these different financial planning courses in their normal day-to-day curriculum. So I wanted to go through just some different items that you can start to help teach them. Again, this could be for kids, for grandkids, different things they should be looking at. One of the ones I think is very easy is, as you have teenagers and they go get summer jobs, well, now they have earned income. Think about having them set up a Roth IRA. Roth IRA, again, that has tax-free growth and tax-free distributions. But say if you're 15 and that account is going to have potentially 50 years to have tax-free growth, that can have a huge impact on their retirement plan. Now, certain kids are motivated by different things. So I have a lot of clients with young kids that, they set up these Roth IRAs for the kids when they're, say working at Moomer's or an ice cream shop. Maybe they're putting even just $100 a month. Well, sometimes it's nice, maybe you match that. So maybe you contribute $50 or $100 for their contributions, just helping them start to get that account established, get that growing for the long term. With that, maybe allow them to pick some of the stocks. Ultimately, investments, we want to have diversification, but the big thing for them to be interested in is maybe having some ownership in that. Looking at companies like Starbucks, Coca-Cola, Apple, those are going to be names they're familiar with, not suggesting those are what they should be investing in, but allow them to have some discretion on how that account is managed so they actually take an interest in that. Now, once that account gets built up, those companies, again, good companies, very specific industries, you may want to start to introduce more of an index-based approach to have a little bit more diversification. Again, make it interesting for them have some discretion on that. Obviously, don't take a ton of risk, but the idea is get that account established and then start to introduce investments and learn how those markets move and what they can expect from these different types of accounts. With that, we also want to start to teach them about budgeting. We think about kind of this 3-bucket approach. We have our checking account for money that we need in the short term for day-to-day expenses. The second bucket would be more of emergency funds, savings, money markets type accounts. And then we have our third bucket for our investments. I get it, if they're 15, they probably don't have a lot of expenses in that example. But the idea is starting to get them to think about how they can start to fill up these buckets before they move on to the next one. That's just a habit that will take them very long into the future. And then when they're 30, 40, actually in a career, they're going to still have that healthy habits of creating a budget. I think probably the most important thing though that we can teach them is how interest rates work. The number of clients that I work with that come out of school, say they're a young physician, they're graduating college, maybe they have $200,000 in student loans, they've been making these minimum payments on these loans, and they come to us and the balance just keeps going up. The amount of people that don't understand just simple interest amortization is huge. So if you have teens that are maybe going to college in the next couple years, start teaching them how compounding interest works, how mortgages work, how student loans work. The impact that can have on them is going to be phenomenal over the long term. If you can teach them about how to reduce their overall savings, increase their overall savings, reduce their interest payments, that can have a pretty large impact on them long term. That with some of the other things we talked about, it's going to start to set them up for success. Another great resource is check out his YouTube channel. We have a lot of different educational content that they can look at to see about budgeting, different investment accounts, and of course, we're always a resource here to help them as well.
Planning is the first step to succeeding. Plan to retire well. The success of your retirement depends on a solid financial plan. If you are retired or nearing retirement, we invite you to an informative live event to help you plan to retire well. Our presentation will address important questions, such as how will the new administration impact your retirement? What does the recent Fed interest rate cut mean for your portfolio? Are you worried about outliving your retirement savings? How can you maximize your Social Security benefits? What tax changes are coming in 2025? And much more. Call 888-608-5825 or register online and choose the date and location that works best for you. The live event starts at 6:30 p.m. and is free to attend with a complimentary gourmet dinner to follow. Call 888-608-5825 or register online to reserve your seats today.
All right, let's talk about asset allocation. What that really boils down to is diversification of your portfolio. And traditionally, when you think about diversification, and a lot of times it comes down to risk, as you get older, traditionally you want to take less risk with your overall portfolio. So that's where asset allocation can become vital. So let's walk through maybe 5 best practices for managing your asset allocation. So starting with the first, consider your age. What's your retirement timeline? Also, sort of what's your life expectancy? And so if you're going to be under 50 years old, you might say, okay, I may be comfortable taking more risk with my portfolio. You might have a heavier equity weighting versus bond weighting within your portfolio. Now when you get, say, 5 to 10 years from retirement, all of a sudden you might say, well, I'm going to reduce from a more aggressive strategy potentially down to a more moderate risk exposure. And then you get into retirement, or you're getting in those later stages of life, and you might say, well, I really need to scale things back and invest more conservatively. Now again, this isn't true for everyone. Everyone's situation's unique, but that's traditionally what you may observe. Meanwhile, number 2 is your risk tolerance. As I said, that's going to be different for everyone regardless of age. So you might be a bit younger and saying, well, I don't like the emotional stress that comes with the market and watching that do really well one day, not so well the next day, and over time those roller coaster rides aren't your comfort zone. So again, it comes back to your personal risk tolerance. So that's where you could use, as a general rule, there's been this rule of 100 where you take 100 minus your age, and that's the percentage of the portfolio where you might say, hey, I want to take greater risk. So that could be in stocks as an example. So if you're 60 years old, 100 minus 60, okay, 40% of the portfolio, let's say, is in stocks. What we've noticed, though, is people are living longer. It's almost become the rule of 110, and so you're taking 110 and then subtracting your age, and then that's the percentage of the portfolio where you might say, hey, I want to take risk. Number 3, the stock market shouldn't dictate your allocation strategies. Obviously, there's a lot of day-to-day movement, and there's a lot of things going on, whether it's political unrest, there's a lot of international with different wars that are happening, and all of that comes into play, that a lot of times people will use those current events and say, well, I'm going to shift from one maybe aggressive strategy over to cash, and trying to ultimately time the market, which we've learned over time doesn't pay off. So it's important to follow a planned asset allocation strategy as you get to retirement and then also through retirement. Number 4, diversify your holdings within each asset class. So within the stocks, you might have different exchange-traded funds, or ETFs for short. There might be different mutual funds that you would hold, or potentially different individual stocks within your portfolio. You don't want to rely on just one company or one sector of the market. You might, for stocks, look in the value sector, such as different utility companies, consumer staples, healthcare. Or then you've got the growth sector, where you might find more of the technology or financial industries. So again, diversification on the equity side, and then you've of course got the bonds, which would have different government, corporate, municipal bonds, and different maturity dates for those bond holdings. Number 5 insurance company account options. So that's where you could look at, there's different fixed or fixed indexed or life insurance sometimes that includes long-term care. So that can be part of your asset allocation. But you do have to work with a licensed insurance agent, and it's helpful to find one that can shop around and look at a lot of different companies versus just one insurance company. At Centennial Wealth Advisory, we're set up as an independent firm where we can help you evaluate your risk and have those conversations of what your comfort level is with your portfolio and trying to define what that appropriate asset allocation is for you. We welcome you to give us a call and talk through that.
I'm Brittany Trout, the Development Coordinator at Habitat for Humanity Grand Traverse Region. And right now we are working on our New Waves project here in Leelanau County. We encompass 2 other counties as well as the Grand Traverse region, which is Kalkaska and Grand Traverse. As you can see, we're on the construction site, and Habitat not only has volunteer opportunities and community partners for the construction side, but also for our restore side. If you're ever interested in getting involved from being a community organization, a church, or an individual, feel free to reach out to us. But I specifically want to tell you about who we have here with us today. We have Centennial Wealth Advisory on site today to help volunteer as a community partner. They are donating their time and having their team out here to help us lay flooring. As we move on, at this site we hope to have 6 to 7 houses come 2025, and then later on we'll be able to come back to this site and build more homes. Habitat is really well known in the community, and we work together with our friends to give them the chance to have affordable housing. We have homeowners who are not only families, individuals, but they encompass all of that. They can be an individual, a young partner together, or an elderly couple. We accept anyone with meeting in the criteria. We wanted to thank Centennial Wealth Advisory for coming out today, and we hope to have them back in the future.
"57% of employees say that finances are the top cause of stress in their lives. This is one of many findings from a PwC survey. Human resources managers and business owners, we will partner with you to help your employees. At Centennial Wealth Advisory, we focus on education and the health of the whole person. We offer a complimentary financial wellness workshop with food provided for your team. We all want our employees to be productive at work, but most importantly, we want them to flourish in every area of their life."
Every once in a while, we stumble across some statistics. And this recent one that I came across, and it was kind of a survey that compiled a bunch of statistics, came from the Fed. And really, it was very interesting because it outlined 6 unpleasant statistics for retirees. And so I kind of want to go over those with you today to inform you on them, and then also kind of try to help you avoid being one of those statistics. So first, number 1, and this is more just background information for you, but it was covering the average Social Security benefit. So the average Social Security benefit for 2023 amounted to about $22,000 per year. So I want you to think about that. If you're approaching retirement, or maybe you've got a few years out before retirement, a lot of people think that Social Security should be a huge part of your retirement plan. Well, think about it. Can you make $22,000 a year work for your situation. For a lot of people, that's just not enough, right? So you can't solely live on Social Security alone. So you got to have something else, right? Well, number two, more than 1 in 4 working adults are not contributing to retirement accounts. Isn't that just crazy? So the actual stat was 28% of those working adults aren't saving for retirement, don't have that retirement account. But what really blew my mind, and this is number 3, is that nearly 50% of millennials, and get this, 92% of Gen Zers don't have a retirement account whatsoever. Okay, isn't that just wild? Now, the Fed did do kind of an explanation there on reasons why these generations aren't really saving for retirement. And the big one, the first one, is those rising costs. Okay, obviously with inflation being so high, everything is costing more. And for the younger folks, having the extra dollar to put away in the retirement accounts is very hard to come by, right? Another one is these younger couples, well, they're having children, right? So the added cost to bring a child into the world doesn't allow for a lot in savings. But I would encourage you, even if it's $50 a month, something that you think is way too small to even make a difference, well, just get started, because I think that's oftentimes the first hurdle, is just getting started, just getting invested. And so I encourage you, stash away whatever you can, because the earlier you start, the magic of compounding interest is just unbelievable. If you can continue to do that year over year over year for 20, 30, 40 years until you retire, you'd be really surprised at what you actually have when you retire. Number 4, 38% of Americans are not in the stock market, which I thought that was very interesting as well. I mean, yes, it can be very volatile, but when you go back and look at history, for an example, the S&P 500, you go back 95 years, if you average the annualized rate of return, it amounts to 11.5%. So yeah, one of the main concerns is the volatility, but typically that's just short term in the market. So you should be investing in the market, but for the long term. And hopefully in the long run, you'll end up ahead. Number 5, nearly 70% of Americans aren't on track with retirement. Isn't that just crazy, that number? 70%. Now, what they did find was that as you increase in age, those stats kind of change a little bit. So those over 60 do feel a lot better about their retirement compared to the younger generations. So kind of self-explanatory there. And then number 6, many retirees without private income report struggling financially. So this is, hey, we've got so many people, about 53%, that are living just on Social Security alone. Now, they might be working, they have a job or so forth, but if you don't have that extra income, whether it be from a retirement account, a part-time job, or a pension, living on Social Security alone can be very, very difficult. So I encourage you, plan for retirement, right? Get things in place, start investing, and work on different income sources so that you can plan to retire well.